Coming up on the Inside Indiana Business Television podcast, Infosys picks the old Indy Airport for its new training hub. Purdue wants data science to be part of every student's experience. A Cincinnati brewery is finding a home in Indiana. St. Vincent opens its first micro-hospital. The Innovators with Dr. K spotlights a bakery. Indiana relaunches the Pete Dye Golf Trail. And a special 20th anniversary edition of The Insiders. Welcome to the Inside Indiana Business Television podcast. I'm Andy Ober. Indian tech giant Infosys has unveiled its plans to bring a U.S. training center to the old Indianapolis International Airport site. In all, the company plans 3,000 jobs in central Indiana. Fresh off the announcement, President Ravi Kumar and Indiana Governor Eric Holcomb joined Inside Indiana Business host Gary Dick.
Ravi, I'll start with you. The numbers are big. The project itself, 3,000 jobs. Why pick Indiana and Indianapolis for this education center?
Yeah, so, we spoke about it last time. Last May, we announced 10,000 jobs. This is in context to all our clients, large corporations who are digitizing their landscapes, and we are a partner for them. We need to build capabilities for the future. And we made an announcement of 2,000 jobs in Indiana as the first technology and innovation hub where our clients and Infosys can come together to co-create the future. We do realize that when we made that announcement, we need to build capabilities which don't exist today. So this training center is in the heart of that announcement because we have to build capabilities grounds up. We have 3 feeders of talent. We hire from schools and colleges. We repurpose talent from legacy talent pools, and we hire experienced talent which needs continual learning. All these 3 talent pools need a training capability so that we stay relevant to our clients. And that's the reason why the U.S. Education Center, which we announced in Indiana, is very important in this strategy. Right. We are a company which has one of the largest training facilities in the world in India, so we're going to replicate that back in Indiana. Why Indiana? We spoke about it earlier. In the middle of the United States, great access to our client clusters, good academic ecosystem, and a great government to support us in this journey to think big for Indiana and for Infosys.
Yeah. Governor, talk about the impact in your view of this deal. Again, big numbers, 3,000 jobs. What in your view is going to be the impact, the ripple impact of the deal?
Well, it really will be. First, happy birthday to Inside Indiana Business. What a 20-year run you've had. And I think about this in the context of the 20 years to come. We have, as you alluded to at the outset, we have really got our economy dialed in, humming, very attractive, almost magnetic, globally speaking. We've got an infrastructure program in place that connects us with the world and brings the world back to us. And what we have to make sure that we're doing is everything to skill up our workforce, and that's what Infosys does like no other. And so this is going to have not just a profound positive impact on central Indiana, but every community, every business that wants to make sure that they can usher in the future of business, the way we're integrated, and the IoT of the way we live, work, and play. This is what Infosys does, and so it couldn't be a better partnership that will really extend well outside our borders. Folks will be coming into Indiana through the #1 ranked airport now 6 years in North America, and they'll drive by Infosys every single day to get training.
Yep. Ravi, talk about, for those who aren't familiar with the model at Infosys, this training campus, this education campus, and what it's all about.
Yep. Infosys always believed that hiring from schools and driving a 8 to 12 week training, which is experiential, immersive, and classroom, and actually comes from practical training, is very important for us to build capabilities for the future. So this training campus will have facilities to do classrooms, facilities to create experiential learning, a residential facility so that it's very immersive. And that's the reason why we establish a facility to actually set our training needs. Not only are we going to use it for our own employees, we're also going to use it for our clients. Our clients need training and capabilities as much as we need. They have to repurpose themselves for the future of digital. So this is a comprehensive way of looking at training and enablement for building capabilities of the future.
All right. Well, thank you both for joining us. Ravi Kumar from Infosys, Governor Eric Holcomb, of course, big deal. We'll be following it in the months and years ahead. Thank you.
Thank you.
Still to come, an Ohio brewery is growing in Indiana, And St. Vincent brings another neighborhood hospital to Indiana. But first, Purdue University has launched an effort aiming to make data science education part of every student's learning experience. The school says the Integrated Data Science Initiative will create a data science for all ecosystem. Executive Vice Presidents Jay Akridge and Suresh Garamella came in studio with more.
More innovation at Purdue, another program, Purdue's Integrated Data Science Initiative. Suresh, first of all, I mentioned those numbers. It's going to be everywhere, right? The need for data science and analytics, and that's what the program is all about.
I think the need is staggering, Gary. Yep. Every time you turn around, you see that there's enormous amounts of data being generated from sensors, and there's so much of it that it's hard to make sense of it. So our thinking was that every company that we've talked to wants some help in this area. There's a lot of interest in companies in the workforce of the future that knows how to deal with this data correctly. So imparting data literacy to the workforce is one of the key goals of this initiative.
And a key piece of this is the fact that this is not limited, this initiative, to certain areas of students. This is everybody on campus.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Jay, as you talked about that, to kind of dovetail on that, it is data science for all. That's kind of the theme, right?
It absolutely is. We would like every Purdue student to leave with a fundamental understanding of data science principles, how to use data in smart ways, ask the right questions. And there's kind of three pieces. One is growing the number of majors, data analysts, those that involve in data analytics, making data part of every student's program in, say, agriculture or manufacturing, retailing, healthcare, and then again making sure that all of our students ultimately have a fundamental understanding.
Mm-hmm. And it's really, again, a focus on both education and research. On the education side, how will that take place?
Absolutely. So one of the ways we're doing that is something we're calling the Data Mine. It's a living learning community where we're looking to turn an entire residence hall into a community of students who are focused and passionate about data science in all these different possible areas where they can study. We've got 100 students going to be in a pilot this fall, and we'd look to grow that to about 800 then in the second year.
Suresh, in terms of research, and that means collaborations and partnerships, right?
I think this is one of those areas in which we expect the greatest growth in corporate partnerships. As you've no doubt heard, we've announced in our Discovery Park district a new building called the Convergence. It's a large building that we're hoping that will form a home to all the companies that want to come work with Purdue researchers, Purdue graduate students. And we think that data science is a natural focus area that perhaps can be hosted in this new building.
We see, obviously, in our last segment, Infosys making a huge investment in the state of Indiana, and Purdue, a partnership training all 10,000 U.S. employees. It really gets to the heart of what we're talking about here.
It does. Infosys helped us think about the need for training students as well, their employees as well, besides doing the research. So with them, we're doing both the research and the training. But that is interesting how many companies now want to do the same thing with us.
Yep. Very quickly, 10 seconds, Jay. Good for the state of Indiana?
Absolutely. I mean, as we think about this state focusing on data-driven companies, we want to be providing talent for them.
All right. The Integrated Data Science Initiative, Jay Akridge, also Suresh Garamella. Thank you both for being here. We'll talk to you soon.
Later in the podcast, St. Vincent opens another micro-hospital, and a bakery takes the spotlight in the Innovators with Dr. K. But now, Greater Cincinnati-based Braxton Brewing Company was dreamed up in a downtown Indianapolis apartment by some ExactTarget alumni, and now they want to bring their beer to Indiana. Chief Marketing Officer Jonathan Gandolf joined the show to discuss the brewery's growth and future plans.
Congratulations on the growth. The craft industry continues to grow in a big way. You and your partners were in the business world, ExactTarget and Deloitte, the companies represented. How did the idea really come about?
Yeah, so one of my colleagues at ExactTarget actually had a brother in northern Kentucky that was working at Hofbräu House in Newport. And he said, I wanted to start a brewery and I don't know how to start a business. And it just so happens, living in our apartment, we had somebody who studied entrepreneurship, somebody who studied marketing, and a CPA from Deloitte. And so the three of us kind of went in together on it and thought it'd be a fun side project, but it became very real very fast.
It became a lot more. And how talk about from the business side, because that's such an important part of the craft scene now, is that business model and really doing it the right way. How did the principles and your experiences at ExactTarget kind of translate into the brewing business?
Absolutely. I mean, I think Exact Target was some of the best B2B marketing in the world at the time. And at the root of our business, whether it's selling to our distributor or selling to bars and accounts and restaurants, there's a lot of B2B marketing in beer that I think often gets overlooked. And so we've applied some of the technologies and techniques that we learned at Exact Target to our business in craft beer. And I think it's really helped differentiate us amongst some of our peers.
Yeah, looking at the garage there, a garage door opening up, reflective of coming up with the idea in the garage, right?
Exactly.
Let's talk about Braxton Brewing. You're based in Covington, Kentucky, that's greater Cincinnati area.
Yes.
You're distributed all throughout Ohio. You're into Tennessee and Kentucky
Yep.
as well.
Yeah, so we are as far north as Columbus, Ohio right now, going to Cleveland soon, down to Nashville, Tennessee. We'd love to expand into Indiana. We've got to find the right time for capacity and demand. Hopefully before the end of this year or early into next year, we'll get our beer up here in Indianapolis, kind of where a lot of the business side of things started.
You've been in business 3 years. You've doubled production every year, up to 15,000 plus barrels
Yes.
now on an annual basis. What's been key in your view? Good beer obviously is important.
Yeah.
But what's really driven your growth?
Yeah, first and foremost, the liquid is very good. But second of all, we didn't have a lot of experience in this industry, and I think you can look at the disadvantages of that in one aspect, but on the other hand, we didn't know what status quo was. So we were willing to take risks that maybe other breweries or other breweries growing at our rate weren't willing to, and we kind of think about things differently. So it's been a huge opportunity for us to use our background in technology and marketing to differentiate ourselves a little bit, and kind of go along for the ride with the crazy growth that is industry-wide right now.
As you look at that growth and think about the next 5, 10 plus years at Braxton, where do you see things going?
It's a great question. If you had asked me 3 years ago, it'd be very different than my answer now. I think regional is a great goal, especially the way the industry is going right now. Ohio, Tennessee, Kentucky. You start to look beyond that, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, maybe further south as well. Being in Kentucky, it's especially in northern Kentucky, are you in the Midwest or are you in the South? And you try to play up your roots that way. But we want to get in Indiana, all of state Ohio and Tennessee, and then we'll see what's next after that.
Very good. Jonathan Gandalf with Braxton Brewing Company, congratulations.
Thank you.
Purdue grad, Indiana
Yes.
native as well. We hope to see the beer in Indiana in the future.
Us too. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Remember, you can catch Inside Indiana Business Television on stations throughout the state every weekend. Head to InsideIndianaBusiness.com to check listings. Still to come, a brownie baker joins the Innovators with Dr. K, and golfers welcome the reopening of big-name courses throughout the state. But first, St. Vincent has opened its latest neighborhood hospital in the Castleton area of Indianapolis. That's its 4th statewide. The small hospitals reflect a new trend in the industry designed to make healthcare more accessible. St. Vincent CEO Jonathan Nolly joined Barb Lewis in the business of health.
Micro-hospitals, neighborhood hospitals really have their detractors. Why are they such an important part of your strategy?
Well, as you've seen, healthcare continues to evolve. It's transforming at a rapid rate than never before seen. Increasing pharmaceutical costs, how care is being delivered, the education of consumers and patients about wanting to drive more of that. We feel that if we don't drive transformation in healthcare, we will be disrupted. And so we believe disrupting ourselves is the most important way to evolve healthcare as an industry.
Okay, a quick question before we launch right back. Everyone's talking about 96th and Spring Mill, the land that's sitting there. What's the latest on that?
Absolutely, it's a great question. The land acquisition at 96 and Spring Mill plays into an overall strategy of how do we position ourselves in the future. St. Vincent just moved our corporate offices to the Parkwood West building at 96 and Spring Mill, saw the vacant acreage next to us and felt it was in our best interest to secure it in the event we wanted to do something in the future. We still have no plans for that property, but we feel in the best interest of the organization and how healthcare evolves, we would want to have that contiguous to our new corporate office.
Okay, so how does that, and let's briefly talk about this overall strategy that you have for the entire state and how you're kind of staying one step ahead of what you need to succeed in the healthcare industry.
We refer to it as reimagining healthcare. How do individuals, patients, consumers want their healthcare delivered, and what is the expectation they place on anybody that's delivering healthcare? For St. Vincent, we've taken the approach of one hospital, multiple locations, which really refers to every one of our inpatient, outpatient, on-demand, virtual care centers throughout the state of Indiana to ensure that we're connected with our patients, holding their hand, prenatal to end of life, and every step along the way. And how do we need to evolve that so we are more patient-centered in the future?
Okay, so when do we go to the neighborhood micro-hospital, and when do we head to one of the bigger facilities?
Absolutely. The vast majority of patients that are seen in one of our existing facilities with an ER, as well as any other hospital, can be seen at a neighborhood hospital. We see them quicker. We see them with the same ER physicians, the same inpatient medicine physicians, the same protocols, medical record, connection, you name it. It's just in a facility that is closer to their home. It is quicker service, provides the same outcomes, and we believe over time will show it is a lower cost to patients, employers, and insurance companies.
All right. Well, Jonathan, Natalie, we have a lot more to talk about, but no time to do it, and so we'll have to have you back. Thank you so much for being on our program this week.
Thanks so much, Barbara.
Later in the podcast, the Pete Dye Golf Trail relaunches and a special edition of the Insiders. But now, Lucky Guy Bakery says it prides itself on brownies that are sophisticated and grown up, using simple ingredients and no preservatives. The company also offers gluten-free and vegan options. Owner Joni McGarry joined IU Kelley entrepreneurship professor Donald Korotko in the Innovators with Dr. K.
My question first is, how did you come up with this idea? And I understand there's also a backstory.
Well, there
to that.
always is. When I went to college, I studied food science, and I've always been very interested in food and cooking and baking. And fortunately, when I got out of college, I was able to work for a company that had a really large chocolate division, and I did product and process formulation for their chocolate and coconut division, and learned a lot about chocolate as an ingredient, and also at the same time was doing a lot of baking. And so what is the perfect marriage of chocolate and baking? Brownies. And over the years, I tried to find a perfect brownie and have, worked on that. And as I was baking a lot as a mother after I left my career, I started to formulate a particular brownie, which is now our signature iconic brownie.
Nice.
And I made up a brand to promote at bake sales for fundraisers. And that sort of segued into people saying you should start a business. And last year, 3 years ago, I was at a luncheon in Bloomington, and a friend of mine who had started a business there said, it's a great place to start a business, do it. So I was able to.
Who's your market right now? Who are you aiming for?
Well, there are a couple of different markets. We have an online effort. We have an online store. And so that would be mostly women who are buying gifts. That seems to be our market segment.
Very good.
And then our wholesale market is small and large chain grocery stores and also coffee shops in this area and regionally.
Excellent. So how did the appearance on the Today Show come about? Because I heard you were on the Today Show.
Actually, my brownies were on the Today Show. In November, out of the blue, Elizabeth Mayhew, who's a contributing producer at the Today Show, called. She had seen the product online and liked the marketing. So I think that we had done a lot right there in terms of being different and set ourselves apart. She asked for samples, we sent them, and then she said, we're going to feature you in the middle of December. So we had 3 weeks to prepare for what we knew was going to be a huge spike. And because of where we work in a shared commissary space, we were able to increase our production by 6 times immediately without any downside to that, fulfill the orders and get that going. It was terrific for us.
What are some significant challenges you face now?
It's as we grow, the challenge is to keep everything handmade because we really believe in that. We do everything by hand. We package by hand. We cut by hand. We do all our gifting by hand. And to fill in a team that I can leave that work to while I focus outward and grow.
Excellent. Excellent. The backstory behind your logo. We have a bunny rabbit here that's a logo.
His name is Felix.
His name is Felix. There is a little backstory. Is that true?
Yes. Well, when we came with I had the name Lucky Guy Bakery. Lucky Guy is named for my husband, obviously. And we wanted to riff on the concept of luck. And so I worked with a graphic designer with different concepts of luck, and she came up with this foot donor, the lucky rabbit's foot. And at first I thought, there's no way I could use this to market my product, but I thought he was so sweet and funny that I went ahead with it.
That's great. Well, we love Felix.
I love Felix too.
Well, as I do on every show, I try to give some prescriptions to the challenges you face. So for you, I came up with the 3 T's for you, a unique growing venture. And the first T is transition. As you scale from the smaller operation that you've been to now much larger growing business, you want to start to think about that. What's it going to take? So you're going to be making a transition to you and your staff, which leads to the second T, which is team, because you want to build a trusted team around you that can help scale this thing to where you'd like to see it go. And that's the third T then, is about traffic. You want to make sure that you're going to develop a proper marketing plan to consistently drive traffic to your website and hopefully to the shops where the brownies are at and stuff. So we hope that'll kind of help you, give some ideas as you face the challenges. And unlike the Today Show, they just had the brownies, which we have here, but we brought you on, so we're much better than just the Today Show.
Well, I'm delighted to be here.
We're glad to have you on. And where can the audience find you, Joni?
Well, you can find us at luckyguybakery.com, which is our website, and in coffee shops and grocers in Indianapolis, Bloomington, and actually throughout the region.
Fantastic.
We're in distribution now.
That's great. That's great. Thank you, Joni.
Thank
Well,
you.
there you have it, Gary. We had a phenomenal, I think, small business right in their kitchens that becoming something very, very powerful here in the state of Indiana.
Still to come, a special 20th anniversary edition of The Insiders. But first, the Indiana Department of Tourism Development has relaunched the statewide Pete Dye Golf Trail. The initiative, which is a salute to Carmel resident and world-renowned golf course designer Pete Dye, includes 7 courses throughout the state. Department Director Mark Newman joined Bill Benner for Inside Indiana Sports.
The Pete Dye Trail has been around for a long time, but you're kind of relaunching.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, outdoor recreation and sport tourism in general are big contributors to the Indiana tourism economy, about $3 billion on an annual basis. We think this is a tool that could help bolster that even further. Indiana is recognized among some of the best golfing states in the United States, but we haven't really taken advantage of that to drive tourism here.
Well, and nothing better to drive it than to mention the name Pete Dye, again, world-renowned architect. Talk about, again, how IOTD will manage this asset.
Well, what we've done is we've brought together 7 golf courses, and working together with them have created a marketing fund that will allow us to tell the story of the Pete Dye legacy, those golf courses that comprise the trail, and really create a compelling story for why people need to come here. For their golfing adventures.
And great golf courses. Of course, we all know about the Brickyard right here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The Fort, also in Indianapolis. The Mystic Hills up at Culver.
Yeah.
French Lick, at the Pete Dye course at French Lick.
Yeah, I mean, so what we've done is, these are golf courses with great bucket list qualities to them. And we think that bringing these together in this way and promoting them it's a no-brainer for people to want to come to Indiana, experience it. When you think of the Pete Dye course at French Lick, the highest point in Indiana, the 4 holes at Brickyard Crossing at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Maple Creek, the first 18-hole golf course that Pete Dye ever built. And there's a great little Pete Dye museum inside their clubhouse. And the list goes on for why this has become an attraction for us.
And up at Purdue, you get a Pete Dye twofer because you got the camping course and you got the Ackerman course.
Yeah, you've got the Ackerman Island, you've got the camping, and that comprises the Burke Boilermaker Golf Complex, a phenomenal complex.
You mentioned Indiana being one of the top 10 golf states in the United States, and people might go, really? But that's...
Well, we've had people from Golf Advisor and other reputable organizations, entities come and they've played our courses, they've traveled the state, they've seen the assets that we have, whether it's a Pete Dye course, a Donald Ross course, a Don Fazio course, or you name it. We have a tremendous collection, over 200 courses in the state of Indiana that really stand out.
And talk about, you've established 2 websites.
That's right.
Again, one specific to the Pete Dye and then the other one, Indiana Golf in general.
Yeah, so PeteDyeGolfTrail.com is the website specific to the golf trail, and then visitindianagolf.com is the one that really speaks to all of the golf courses across our state, and they've got some really useful tools on them. You can put together a golf package for yourself. You can see what some of the stay and play packages are that are being offered out there. It gives you a lot of, it gives you the ability to really create your own experience.
And as we wrap up, we'd be remiss if we didn't, and we talked about it on the show previously, but the 18 holes now at the Children's Museum, a spectacular addition to that Sports Legends experience.
Yeah, so that really is an amazing addition to the golf profile of the state. I mean, these are replica holes that represent the 18 best among the broad portfolio of Pete Dye's and Alice Dye's golf courses across the country. They're huge proponents of the First Tee program, and this really plays into that very nicely.
Well, Mark Newman, thanks for being on the show, and we really, I think it's a terrific thing that the Office of Tourism Development can embrace Hoosier icons such as Pete and Alice Dye. Thanks for being on the show.
And finally this week, May 1st marks 20 years on the air for Inside Indiana Business. So we dedicated this week's Insiders discussion to looking at the evolution of the Hoosier business landscape over the past 2 decades, along with a peek at what's ahead. The panel includes Hoosier tech entrepreneur Scott Jones, Kiwanis International Youth Programs Executive Director Christina Hale, and Indiana Secretary of Career Connections and Talent Blair Milo.
I'd like to start by kind of looking back and get all of your thoughts. And Scott, I'll start with you because you were very involved in so many of the things going on 20 years ago when it comes to creating a technology and innovation hub and issues like daylight saving time and connectivity and all those kinds of things. Take us back 20 years ago to what things were like.
Right. Well, I had just come back from Boston in the mid-90s and spent a few years here and thought, gee, the infrastructure here for technology and company development was not anything like what you would see on the coast. I had companies in the San Francisco side as well. And so as we built a team pretty quickly into the Indiana Technology Partnership and TechNet, we quickly devised a list of things that would catapult us forward. And it included bringing capital to Indiana, taking these great universities and trying to reverse that brain drain, keeping people here, having good places for them to go to work, getting connected with other places like Austin had done decades earlier with their Nerdbird flights to San Jose area, which really catapulted the Austin economy. Looking at things like Seattle and what a Microsoft and now an Amazon have done, not just for technology in their community, but for everything in their community, from sporting to cultural outcomes. And so that's what we started to look at. And when you look around, back then we were saying, oh, gee, look at our circle. There's not a single technology company on our circle.
Right.
Now look.
Yeah, a big difference.
It is almost all technology when you count it up, and the tallest building is Salesforce.
Right.
So, what a difference. You look at nonstop flights to San Francisco, which we did not have for most of these 20 years, and, I looked today, and I've been taking these quite a bit because I go back and forth to Hawaii a lot, through San Francisco, and there's nonstops to San Francisco 3 times a day from United and Alaska, and 3 times back. Morning, afternoon, evening. It's perfect so that when somebody in San Francisco, San Jose area wants to invest, they can get up in the morning, get on a plane, and get back here at night and sleep in their own bed, right? And that's what they want if they want to give us their millions of dollars in the top venture capital firms.
Absolutely. Christina, your take, you've served in the at the Indiana State House, the legislature. Talk about your remembrances of these last 20 years.
Sure. It's just been a remarkable time when you consider, too, people now have cell phones they didn't 20 years ago. I mean, we didn't have Facebook. There's a lot of things we didn't have. We didn't have gaming here in our state. So I think just really appreciating the way we live, too. We've now developed a culture of convenience. But I think something else, we've begun to appreciate the role of arts and culture as drivers in economic development. We now sometimes think of growing our cities and employability from a sense of place and opportunity because people live differently. People, Blair Milo's generation, they decide where they want to live and then they find a job. So I think we've been fairly reactive to that. We've been fairly ambitious. Our skyline is changing. Connectivity has changed somewhat. We do have some direct flights. We have a brand new airport in our capital city. But how about developing that second airport in Northwest Indiana and some of our ports too? We've done a lot. There's a lot more to go. We're going to double track the South Shore. So I think we can really mark the passage of time on a very positive note.
Blair, you were not in public life back 20 years ago, entered in 2011 or so, mayor of LaPorte. As you think back to your experience as a mayor and the issues you were facing in smaller communities, LaPorte's not small, but smaller communities, talk about.
I think that we've seen the value of the quality of place and quality of life in the space of economic development really grow in conversations with community leaders. And even in just the short time frame that I've been around other mayors and the work that we were doing in LaPorte, that I think that early on it was seen sort of as a nice to have, that the bike trails and environmentally friendly things are nice things to have in a community, whereas as now over just a few years, I think we've really recognized that, just as Christina mentioned, that when we have population and talent that is making a decision on where they want to live and then finding a career associated with that, that's really grown in building out our communities in really innovative ways.
Yeah. How about Hoosier inertia, used to call it, right? That Indiana's resistance to change, which 20 years ago was very evident. Scott, you dealt with it a lot, I know.
Right.
That's, to me, over 20 years has changed a lot, and I think we are beginning to open up and be more accepting of change.
Beginning. There's work to be done. But yeah, things like daylight saving time, I tested that as hard as anybody could ever test it. And I think I'm the only guy on the planet who spent $1 million to try and help us see the light. And it took 5, actually 6 years, and a Republican governor, Mitch Daniels, and a Republican Senate, and a Republican House to pass by one vote, and then they try to bring it back every year to unravel it, right? But if you think about it, and everybody at first when I started attacking it, it had been tried every year for 40 years. But it wasn't until I started saying, no, it really does matter for business. It really does matter for jobs. It really does matter for keeping those students that we send to the colleges, to keep them here in something productive so they can be close to their grandkids, can know their grandparents, right? So it has impact that people don't think about. They just think about school bus on the corner, are the cows going to get up, right? And so those were the kind of arguments I got from around the state. And by the way, this would not have happened for not the small communities around the state finally saying, yes, okay, we understand and we want to move forward. And so we got it done and we haven't gone back on that. But it caused us to lose things like airport hubs, right? We could have had maybe a Delta hub or perhaps a United hub that went to a too busy airport in Chicago. Delta went to Cincinnati at a time when they could have gone here, but why couldn't they? It's because the schedules were all messed up. Twice a year, right?
The time we have remaining, we're going to talk a lot about these things. I want to look forward a bit. Blair, in your role, workforce, career connections, big challenge, talent, keeping people here, that kind of. Talk about your view going forward and how big that talent issue is for the Indiana economy.
Well, it's certainly a chief challenge for us, but as far as challenges to have, I think it's a great one because we have so much opportunity that exists here, that we have done so much with growing the business climate and attractiveness, and so we have more and more businesses who are wanting to locate here and diversifying that portfolio of business as well. And so the challenge for us is to then ensure that those connections can be made for our talent and to make sure that people are aware of what the opportunity is and a whole host of different career areas, particularly as the world of work is shifting faster than it ever has before.
Christina, I know you're big on the talent issue, but also health issues and water is a big issue around the state.
And infrastructure as well. Water infrastructure is one thing. We're going to be facing that challenge. Some people say it's the economic development issue of the next 100 years because in many places throughout Indiana, we still have that old 100-year-old wooden water pipe that's going to have to be fixed. We're going to have to think innovatively. And you asked earlier about ambition. I think we've come a long way and there's a long way to go. Ursal Ozdemir of Keystone Construction once said to me, Christina, where are the people seeing the next tall buildings on the skyline? And we have to dream big. And I do worry about us sometimes. We have some collective low self-esteem as Hoosiers. And when we do something big like pull off a Super Bowl with excellence, we kind of think, wow, we did that. So what are those next big, audacious goals that we should be thinking about, what do we do for commerce connection, and what do we do about, moving people between our next nearest possible coast, Chicago, and doing it more efficiently and innovatively?
Scott, only got 20 seconds.
And what are we doing about these potholes? There's a city that has made glass highways that the solar energy is driven, and it heats the highway, and it solves all the pothole problems.
That's a great way to end it. Thank you very much. Scott Jones, Christina Hale, and Blair Milot. Thank you all.
That wraps up this week's Inside Indiana Business Television podcast. Remember, you can find all of this week's TV segments, as well as the top business news from throughout the state at InsideIndianaBusiness.com. While you're there, you can also subscribe to our platform of free e-newsletters. This is Andy Ober for Inside Indiana Business.